The airport was crowded, but Sophia could only feel the stinging pain on her cheek. Her boss, Mr. Miller, stood over her with a wicked smile. He had just slapped her in front of everyone. Sophia held her pregnant belly, her eyes filling with tears. "You're a thief, Sophia!" Mr. Miller screamed so loud that travelers stopped to stare. He pointed at a gold watch lying on the floor next to her bag. "I saw you take it from that passenger's suitcase. You're fired. Get out before I call the police." Sophia shook her head, her voice trembling. "I didn't do it, Mr. Miller. I've worked here for 3 years. I would never steal." "You're lazy and slow because of that baby," Miller hissed, leaning in close. "I wanted you gone weeks ago. Now leave before I drag you out myself." Sophia looked around, but no one stepped in to help. She felt completely alone. Her husband, Marcus, had been missing for 6 months after a terrible accident. Everyone told her he was gone forever, but she refused to believe it. She needed this job to survive, and now it was taken from her by a lie.
Before the story takes a darker turn, I just want to say thank you to everyone supporting this channel. Your likes, your time, your presence here, it means everything. And if you haven't subscribed yet, now would be the perfect moment, because what's coming next, you don't want to miss it.
Just as Sophia began to pack her things, the loud sound of a helicopter blade started to shake the windows of the terminal. A giant black helicopter was landing right outside the glass doors, in an area where no private planes were allowed to touch down. The security guards suddenly stood at attention. Mr. Miller's face turned pale. He knew only one person had the power to land a helicopter there. The heavy glass doors slid open. A man in a sharp black suit walked in. He moved with a cold, powerful energy that made the entire room go silent. Sophia gasped, her heart nearly stopping. The man looked exactly like her missing husband, Marcus. But his eyes weren't soft anymore. They were like ice. As the man walked straight toward the screaming manager, he didn't look at Sophia. He looked at Mr. Miller and said, "I heard there was a problem with my staff."
Do you think Marcus is pretending not to know Sophia to protect her? Or has he really forgotten who she is? Write loyalty in the comments if you think Sophia should forgive him, or revenge if he needs to pay for leaving her alone.
Mr. Miller's knees started to shake. He didn't recognize Marcus as Sophia's husband, but he knew the face of the man who had just bought the entire airport. "Mr. Sterling?" Miller stammered, bowing low. "We didn't expect you until tomorrow. I was just catching a thief." Marcus didn't look at the manager. His eyes swept across the room, passing over Sophia as if she were a total stranger. Sophia felt a cold shiver run down her spine. How could he look at me like that? She wondered. Doesn't he see the ring? Doesn't he see our baby?
"A thief?" Marcus asked. His voice was deep and smooth, like silk over a razor blade. "Yes, sir." Miller pointed a shaking finger at Sophia. "This girl, Sophia, she's pregnant and slow, so she started stealing to make extra money. I just fired her to protect your reputation." Sophia stepped forward, her voice a whisper. "Marcus, is it really you?" The room went dead silent. Mr. Miller let out a nervous laugh. "I am so sorry, Mr. Sterling. This girl must be losing her mind. She thinks she can call you by your first name?" He turned to Sophia, his face turning red with anger. "Shut your mouth! This is the owner of the international terminal. He doesn't know a lowlife like you." Marcus finally turned his head and looked Sophia directly in the eyes. For a second, Sophia saw a flash of the man she loved, the man who used to kiss her forehead every morning. But then his face turned back into a mask of stone. "I have no wife," Marcus said coldly, "and I don't like thieves in my airport." He turned back to Mr. Miller. "Take her to the holding room.
I will deal with her personally in 10 minutes. I want to see exactly what she stole from me."
Mr. Miller grinned like a shark. He grabbed Sophia's arm roughly, dragging her toward the back offices. Sophia looked back at Marcus, her heart breaking into a million pieces. He had come back from the dead, but the man who returned was a monster. As the door to the holding room slammed shut, Marcus stood alone in the hallway. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, crumpled photo of Sophia, whispering 2 words that changed everything. Is Marcus faking his memory loss to catch Mr. Miller in a trap? Or has he truly become a cold-hearted boss? Type trap if you think he's playing a game, or lost if you think he really forgot his wife. Inside the cold, gray holding room, Sophia sat on a hard plastic chair. She rubbed her stomach, trying to calm her racing heart. Mr. Miller stood by the door, tossing the gold watch up and down in his hand. He looked like he had already won a prize. "You really thought you could claim the owner was your husband?" Miller laughed, shaking his head. "That was your biggest mistake. Now, instead of just being fired, you're going to jail for a very long time."
Sophia didn't answer. She was thinking about Marcus's eyes. They were so cold, yet she felt like he was trying to tell her something without speaking. Outside the room, Marcus stood in the shadows of the hallway. He looked at the crumpled photo in his hand. It was a picture of him and Sophia on their wedding day, laughing at a small park. He touched her face in the photo with his thumb.
"I'm coming for you," he whispered so quietly the security guards couldn't hear. Suddenly, the door swung open. Marcus walked in, his face turning back into a mask of ice the moment he saw Miller. "Is she still denying the theft?" Marcus asked. "Yes, Mr. Sterling," Miller said quickly. "But look, I have the evidence right here. This watch is worth $50,000. She's a greedy criminal." Marcus took the watch from Miller. He turned it over and looked at the back. His eyes narrowed. "This is a very expensive watch, Miller. It's a shame it doesn't belong to any of our passengers." Miller blinked, his smile fading. "What do you mean, sir?" "I mean," Marcus said, stepping closer until he was inches from Miller's face, "this watch has your initials engraved on the back. Why would a poor staff member steal a watch that belongs to her boss, unless her boss put it in her bag himself?" Mr. Miller's face turned as white as a sheet. He opened his mouth to lie, but Marcus grabbed his collar and growled. "The cameras in your office aren't the only ones watching. Now tell me, who really told you to get rid of my wife?" "Do you think Mr. Miller is working alone? Or is someone else in the airport trying to destroy Sophia? Comment snake if you think Miller has a secret partner, or trapped if you think Marcus is about to end him right now." Mr. Miller's jaw dropped. He tried to pull away, but Marcus's grip was like iron. "I don't know what you're talking about," Miller stammered. "It was just a mistake. I must have dropped it." Marcus let out a low, terrifying laugh. He let go of Miller's collar and turned to Sophia. For a split second, his eyes softened, checking to see if she was okay, before he turned back into the ruthless boss. "A mistake?" Marcus asked, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. "You slapped a pregnant woman, framed her for a crime, and tried to ruin her life. That isn't a mistake. That is a death sentence for your career." Marcus snapped his fingers. 2 massive security guards, who looked more like soldiers, stepped into the room. They didn't look at Miller. They looked only at Marcus, waiting for an order. "Search his phone," Marcus commanded. "I want every message, every call, and every bank transfer from the last 24 hours. Someone paid him to do this, and I want to know how much his soul cost." Miller panicked. He lunged for the door, but the guards blocked him instantly. He fell to his knees, tears streaming down his face. "Please, it was the director. Director Vane told me if I got rid of her today, I'd get the promotion. He said she was a security risk because of who her husband was." Sophia gasped. She knew Director Vane. He was the man who had been Marcus's business rival for years. If Vane knew she was here, it meant Marcus was in more danger than she thought.
Marcus looked at the watch in his hand and then crushed the glass face with his bare thumb. He looked at Miller with pure hatred. Vane is a dead man walking, but you're gonna help me catch him. He walked over to Sophia and finally reached out. He didn't touch her face yet, but his hand hovered near her shoulder. I'm sorry I had to play this part, Sophia, but the walls have ears. Just then, the airport alarms began to blare. A voice over the intercom shouted, "Security breach in Sector 4! Lockdown initiated!" Marcus grabbed Sophia's hand and pulled her close. He's already here, Marcus hissed. Is Director Vane trying to kidnap Sophia? Or is he trying to take out Marcus before the truth comes out? Write protect if you think Marcus will risk everything for his family. Or run if you think they need to get to the helicopter now. The red emergency lights flashed against the terminal walls, making the airport look like a scene from a nightmare. Marcus didn't hesitate. He pulled Sophia behind him, his body acting as a human shield. Mr. Miller was left shaking on the floor as Marcus led Sophia toward the private exit. Why is Vane doing this? Sophia cried out over the sound of the sirens. We haven't seen him in months. He thinks I'm still weak from the accident, Marcus growled, checking his weapon. He wanted to use you to force me to sign over the airport. He didn't realize I was already back and watching his every move. As they reached the heavy steel doors leading to the runway, 4 men in gray tactical gear stepped out from behind a luggage cart. They weren't airport security. They were Vane's private mercenaries. They raised their launchers, but Marcus was faster. He pulled Sophia into a small alcove just as a smoke grenade exploded where they had been standing. The terminal filled with thick, white fog. Sophia couldn't see a thing, but she felt Marcus's hand tighten around hers. Stay low and keep your hand on my belt, he whispered into her ear. We're going to the helicopter. Through the smoke, Marcus moved like a predator. He took down 2 of the mercenaries with quick, silent strikes, never letting go of Sophia for more than a second. He was a man possessed by the need to protect his family. They burst through the final gate and onto the tarmac. The wind from the helicopter's spinning blades was deafening. Just 50 yards away, the black chopper waited, its engine roaring. But standing between them and safety was a tall man in a gray coat. Director Vane. Vane held a remote detonator in his hand, pointing it toward the helicopter. One more step, Marcus, and your only way out of here turns into a fireball, Vane shouted over the wind. Marcus stopped moving. He looked at the helicopter, then at the man holding his wife's life in his hands. He slowly raised his hands and said, You want the airport? It's yours. Just let her walk to the fence. But as Sophia started to move, she noticed Marcus was secretly counting down with his fingers.
The wind whipped Sophia's hair across her face. She looked at Marcus's hand. He was on his last finger. 3, 2, 1. Suddenly, the airport's giant floodlights cut to black. The entire tarmac was plunged into tonal darkness. Vane screamed in confusion, his thumb pressing the detonator over and over, but nothing happened. Marcus had signaled his team to cut the power and jam the signal at the exact same moment. Now! Marcus yelled.
He didn't run for the helicopter. Instead, he swept Sophia off her feet and dove behind a heavy armored luggage trailer. A split second later, the sound of glass shattering echoed across the pavement. Marcus's elite snipers, hidden on the terminal roof, had taken out the lights and were now pinning Vane's men down. Are you okay? Marcus whispered, his voice thick with emotion as he held Sophia tight against the cold metal of the trailer. For the first time, he wasn't looking at her like a boss or a stranger. The mask was gone.
I thought I lost you, Sophia sobbed, clinging to his suit.
They said the plane went down in the ocean. I had to let them think that, Marcus said, kissing her forehead. Vane had a mole in my inner circle. I had to disappear to find out who it was. I never meant for you to be in the middle of this. I never meant for him to touch you. But the victory was short-lived. A flare hissed into the sky, lighting up the tarmac in a ghostly red glow. Vane was gone from his spot, and the door to the armored trailer they were leaning against suddenly began to slide open from the inside.
A cold barrel of a gun pressed against the back of Marcus's head. A familiar voice whispered, "You're a genius, Marcus, but you forgot one thing. I'm not the only one who wanted you dead." Who do you think is inside the trailer? Is it a crooked cop or someone from Marcus's own family? Type betrayal if you think it's a friend, or stranger if you think Vane has a secret partner. The air went cold as Marcus froze. He knew that voice. He didn't turn around, but his jaw tightened so hard his muscles popped. It wasn't Director Vane. It was his own younger brother, Leo. "Leo?" Sophia gasped, her voice breaking. "Why? You were the one who helped me when Marcus disappeared." "I helped you because I wanted to keep you close, Sophia," Leo sneered, his hand steady on the weapon. "I wanted Marcus to stay dead so I could take over the family business. But then he showed up today at the airport, acting like a king again. I couldn't let that happen." Leo looked at Marcus with pure jealousy. "You always get everything. The empire, the respect, and the beautiful wife. I was tired of being the little brother in the shadows." Marcus slowly turned his head, his eyes burning with a dark fire. "I gave you everything, Leo. I trusted you with my life. I even told you where I was hiding after the accident." "And that was your final mistake," Leo laughed. "I was the one who told Vane you were back. I was the one who told Miller to slap your wife today. I wanted you to lose your temper so you'd walk right into this trap." Sophia felt a wave of nausea. The person she had trusted most for the last 6 months was the one who had caused all her pain. But Marcus didn't look scared. He looked disappointed. "You think you've won, Leo?" Marcus asked softly. "You think you can take my life and my family in my own airport?" Marcus reached for his pocket, but Leo pressed the gun harder against his skull. "Don't move! It's over, Marcus!" Leo screamed. But then a red laser dot appeared right in the center of Leo's forehead. Did Marcus have his snipers watching Leo the whole time? Or did Sophia find a way to signal for help? Type sniper if you think the guards are loyal to Marcus, or smart if you think Sophia is about to save the day. Leo's finger froze on the trigger. He looked up, trying to see where the laser was coming from, but the red dot stayed perfectly still between his eyes. He realized too late that the missing husband had never been truly alone. "Drop the gun, Leo," Marcus said, his voice as cold as a winter grave. "The men on the roof don't take orders from the little brother. They take orders from me." Leo's hand began to shake. You were testing me this whole time? The amnesia, the airport visit, it was all a trap from me?" "I wanted to believe you were loyal," Marcus replied, finally turning around to face his brother. "I wanted to believe my own blood wouldn't sell me out. But the moment you told Miller to slap Sophia, you signed your own papers." Sophia watched in horror as Leo's face twisted with rage. Instead of dropping the weapon, he grabbed Sophia, pulling her in front of him as a human shield. The red laser dot moved from Leo's head to his shoulder as the snipers adjusted their aim to avoid hitting Sophia. "If I'm going down, I'm taking her with me!" Leo screamed into the night. Marcus stepped forward, his face showing no fear. He didn't look at the gun pointed at his wife. He looked straight into Leo's soul. "You think you're a monster, Leo? You haven't seen what I'll do to protect what is mine."
Suddenly, the ground beneath them began to vibrate. It wasn't another helicopter. It was the heavy baggage lift directly under Leo's feet. The metal floor suddenly gave way, dropping Leo into the dark luggage tunnel below. But as he fell, he fired one desperate shot into the air. Did Leo's bullet hit anyone, or was it a final miss? Type safe if you think everyone is okay, or hurt if you think Marcus jumped in front of the bullet.
The sound of the gunshot echoed through the terminal like a crack of thunder. Sophia gasped, her hands flying to her stomach as she fell to her knees. Marcus screamed her name, lunging forward with a speed that didn't seem human. He reached her just as she hit the ground, his arms wrapping around her. He frantically checked her for wounds, his hands shaking for the first time in his life. Sophia, look at me. I'm okay, she whispered, her voice breathless from the shock. He missed, Marcus. The bullet had hit a metal beam above them, sending a shower of sparks into the air. But the danger wasn't over. From the dark tunnel where Leo had fallen, the sound of coughing and scrambling broke the silence. Leo wasn't finished. He climbed back onto the ledge, his face covered in dust and blood, looking like a man who had lost his mind. "If I can't have the Empire, nobody can!" Leo shrieked. He wasn't reaching for a gun this time. He was holding a small black device with a single glowing red button, the real detonator for the fuel lines running under the airport. Marcus stood up slowly, stepping in front of Sophia. He didn't look like a husband anymore. He looked like the boss of bosses the world feared. He held out his hand, his voice dropping to a low, commanding growl. "Leo, put it down. If you press that, we all go. You, me, and the legacy of our father." "The legacy died when you chose her over us!" Leo cried, his thumb hovering over the button. At that exact moment, a familiar black car roared onto the tarmac, screeching to a halt right behind Leo. The door opened, and a figure stepped out that made even Marcus freeze in shock. It was someone they all thought had died years ago. Who do you think just arrived to stop Leo? Is it their father or a secret ally Marcus kept hidden? Type father if you think the old boss is back, or ghost if you think it's someone completely unexpected. The figure stepped out of the black car, and the world seemed to stand still. It was Marcus's father, the original king of the family, looking older but still possessing eyes that could pierce through steel. Leo's thumb froze on the button as his father walked toward him with a look of pure disappointment. "You were always too emotional, Leo," the old man said, his voice echoing across the silent tarmac. "A real leader protects the family. He doesn't destroy it to feed his own ego." Leo began to cry, his power vanishing in a second. He dropped the detonator, and Marcus's security team immediately swarmed him, taking him away in handcuffs. The threat was over, but the air was still thick with the weight of the night's secrets. Marcus turned to Sophia and pulled her into a deep embrace, shielding her from the cold wind. He looked at her with tears in his eyes and whispered, "No more secrets. No more tests. From today on, you are the only one who matters." Months later, the airport was peaceful once again. Sophia stood at the terminal windows, holding her newborn son, watching the planes take off into the golden light. Marcus walked up behind her, wrapping his arms around them both. They weren't just a powerful family anymore. They were a safe one. The amnesia test had proven one thing above all else. True love can survive even the darkest lies. And those who try to break a family will always find themselves alone in the end. As they turned to walk away, Marcus's phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. The father isn't the only one who came back from the dead. Watch your back. Do you want to see a season 2 where Marcus and Sophia face this new mystery? Write season 2 in the comments right now and tell us who you think sent that message. Don't forget to like and subscribe for the next chapter of their life.